Hey, what's happening, YouTube? Can I drop this theory on your forehead piece real quick? So, what I want to talk about today is how reparations is America's last hope. And the reason why I say that it's America's last hope is because when it comes down to what happens to Black Americans specifically, ultimately befalls what happens to every other group in this country as well. But before we get to those, there's two other points that I want to tackle first. And the first point is, what even is reparations in the first place? Reparations is the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. The compensation for war damage paid by a defeated state. The action of repairing something. So now we know what reparations are. And I kind of already touched on it a little bit in my culture war video. But the next point that I want to make is that reparations for Black Americans specifically also helps the entire country at large. What do I mean? So when we see that reparations for Black Americans is always kind of seen as like, oh, well, you're just going to go away. It's just going to go away. It's just going to go away. You're just going to spend it on rims and cars and stuff like that. And my thing would be like, what's wrong with that? Because it would actually boost the economy. But not only that, but if Black Americans were to get money for reparations, instead of trying to co-opt it and give it to other groups of people who never went through what we went through, like even the Native Americans, they already got reparations. The Japanese already got theirs. Jews already got theirs. A lot of people already got their reparations. But for some reason, when it comes down to getting ours, it's like, oh, everybody has to get it if Black Americans are going to get it. But that's a bad idea. And the reason why that is a bad idea is because if money was given to every other group would have that money sent out back to where they come from. Let me show you. We have this whole world right here. And we have all of these little land masses around it. Please don't judge my art skills. But so we see that we have the whole world right here, right? In our country specifically, right here, if we were to give money to everybody in this country, there's so many different people of so many different countries in this country. And if we were to give everybody money, all of that money as soon as it comes into the country, will then leave the country and travel all the way around the world, which will then drain our economy over here in America. So giving reparations to all these other immigrant groups is not a good thing because it would drain the economy. But the thing about Black Americans is that this is our country. And because this is our country, we will do whatever we have to in order to make sure that it stays afloat, because this is our country. We can't go back to Africa. We can't go to the Caribbean. We can't go to South America because none of those places are really welcoming to us. Not that America is welcoming us anyway, but we built America. So it's kind of like we have a claim, a stake here. So giving money to us will then be able to allow us to build jobs and build infrastructure. It would allow us to build infrastructure I know that little place right there is lopsided in the mug. I already know. But it would allow us to create things, to build infrastructure, to create a system that everyone can all come together and work for, which will produce more jobs in America, American jobs, which we will also fill, but then other people will then come over and also help us fill in America, giving more jobs. And there would be, since there's more jobs in America and more people have more money to spend, it would then boost the economy. Because now people actually have money to spend, and then that money can circulate. I was going to try to draw it. I can't draw it. And then now the money can go, good Lord. Now the money can go into America, back out, and then cycle again. And now we have a cycle of money going in and going out, coming in and going out of America, which will then make America a much more economically stable place, way more so than it is right now. But the thing is that America is in a really bad state right now because everything that happens to Black Americans in this country will eventually start to affect other people in the same way who are also not Black American. So what I mean is that, let's take a look at some examples I drew up. One, we have the gender war. The next, we have propaganda. Next, we have rewriting of history. And then we have government sanctioned and public approved injustice. So tackling each one of these individually, let's look at, let's say, gender war. Of course, you got the that's an ugly color. I ain't gonna... Of course, you have the women versus men right now, where you have movements like, sprinkle, sprinkle, or drizzle, drizzle, or whatever. There's a whole back and forth between men and women. But when we look back at Black Americans specifically, when we look at our gender war specifically, our gender war has been started ever since slavery, when they put the woman in charge of the men and the children in order to make sure that, since she was the first teacher of these children, of the new nation, to make sure that she pushes only creating docile and effeminate and non-warrior class men. They wanted Black women to make sure that the men that they reared would never rise to power and fight back against their oppression. So the gender war in Black American society has been a thing since slavery. But the thing is that war was manufactured in order to make sure that we never came together. Which is why you hear so many Black people talk about Black love is revolutionary. Because it is. We're not supposed to love each other in this country. That's why you see so much propaganda, next thing, of white men with Black women, or Black men with white women, or whatever other group of people, but they never really show Black men and Black women ever coming together and being on the same page, being on the same accord, having the Black woman on the Black man's arm and him leading her and his family. They very rarely, if ever, want to show that imagery. And that's like, this propaganda drives that wedge between Black people in general, not even just gender war, but just like old Black people against the young, old Black Americans against the young Black Americans, smart Black Americans against the not so boule Black Americans, the house Black Americans versus the field Black Americans, etc. They always pit us against each other, and that's where this propaganda comes in. But the thing is that, back to the gender war, is that the gender war is something that we've been fighting for a long time. But since we are the heart, soul, and blood of the country, it eventually spills out into other groups. It always eventually spreads to other groups. So now you have people with their gender war and their, Black, not even just Black men and Black women, but now you have other groups of people going at it with each other, because now, since, let's say, masculinity has been reduced to only money, and not only that, but one of the government sanctioned and public approved injustices would be, let's say, bringing over immigrants. let's say with like immigration, they'll bring over a bunch of people in order to replace the foundation or the black Americans who've been here in order to replace us, but in doing so, it also replaces other people. But back to the gender war, is that like now all of these people who came over as immigrants and the white Americans who've been here with us, is that now they're all starting to fight the same fight, you know, going back and forth with like feminism and whatnot. And not only that, also even with LGBTQism, which I'll get into in rewriting of history. But so like they've propagated the gender war in our community, and it led to us going back and forth with each other for so long, and now it's bleeding over into white people having the same problem, white Americans, Asian Americans having the same problem, Latino Americans starting to have the same problem, not to the same effect, but because we are the blood of the country, it will always spread to every other group as well. So next we have propaganda. They use propaganda against us, like let's say propaganda using rap music. What they'll do is that they will push so much negative imagery with, like, let's say they try to push a Sexy Red on us, a Lotto on us. They try to push a Meg Thee Stallion on us, a Nicki Minaj on us, or a Cardi B on us. They'll try to push all of this negative imagery on us. Or they'll push a Kodak Black. They'll push a Rick Ross. They'll push a who else? What else? Other rappers. They'll push a Future. They'll push a NBA YoungBoy. They'll push a King Von. They'll push all of these negative images throughout rap music. But then again, with that rap music and us being the blood of the country, we determine what is cool and what is not. And because of that, when they use propaganda in order to get us to go against each other with rap music, because they don't like rap music about being positive or uplifting our community, because they all say that it doesn't sell. But the reason why it doesn't sell is because the money from other groups of people who own these record labels do not want us to be positive, because they have a jail quota to fill, and their rap music is helping them to do that. But what about the Latinos who kind of get into that culture and start getting caught up? What about the Asians who got caught up in that music and start getting caught up in jail? And what about the white people, the young white people who get caught up in it? Because it does happen. And so it's like they end up starting to, it seeps throughout the American zenith, and it starts to create a bunch of kids, a bunch of people who end up doing the things that they rap about in rap music in general. And with that, that's another effect, that they do stuff to us specifically as Black Americans, but it has an effect and a blowback on other groups of people. The next thing that they do is that they rewrite history. So I'm gonna give you a hint. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. All right, while I was editing, I realized on this part I didn't really flush it out as well as I wanted it to, so I'm going to try to redo it right now. But so I would say that rewriting history and narratives is kind of something that a lot of these groups of people have learned to do from white supremacy. And in doing so, it also creates other issues for other immigrants and other minority groups of people. And the way in which I mean that is that when we look at these four major groups like Latinx, Asian, feminists, and LGBTQ+, we start to see in how the way that they do things affect other people who are non-Black Americans as well. So in Latinx community, is that, like, let's say with the Hispanics come over and they're taking jobs, they'll say, oh, they're taking the jobs that we don't want to do, and they're helping to boost the economy. Well, the thing is that they really don't help boost the economy, because their money they make, they send outside of the country. And then on top of that, they also take jobs, well, from Black Americans, yes, but they also take jobs from other people, which is why you always have white people complaining about, oh, they're taking our jobs. And also on top of that, they often rewrite the history of how America came to have the West Coast, which they sold off to America for like $15 million. and for citizenship. So they didn't really have much to, but they've been trying to say that they didn't get anything after it because of they want to make a reparations claim, which I'm pretty sure America's not going to be too happy on giving out when they already paid them $15 million back in the 1800s. And then we also have on the Asian side of things, where they were pushing a narrative of Stop Asian Hate, which even though during that time from COVID, black people were still the number one victims and recipients of hate crimes. But we were, we weren't taken as seriously as Asian people were. And they often use black people to try to further their message, which sometimes when we dug deep, we saw that they weren't either foundational Black American, or that they weren't, or that those videos were just old in general. And even though these things were happening, they was like, oh, well, it's still black people hitting Asian people, so we should get an anti-hate crime bill. And they got it. But that's just the way in which they rewrite the history in order to like boost their narrative, even though like there was never any actual penance for the woman who killed the black girl during the Black Girl Before the Watts riots in, I believe, 1992. And then on top of that, Asian people were complaining about affirmative action and that they weren't getting into college because they were they take up so much of the minority of the people that got admitted into college, and that they would have to give up position for black people who were undeserving. And then the funny thing is that when affirmative action kind of got taken off, they started to they end up shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. And it's kind of funny how they would often talk about how like a bunch of black people got it and they didn't deserve it, but then again, when they finally got rid of it, now they're suffering from it too. So like, even though I say it affects other people, I guess in this instance it actually affected themselves. And then next we have feminists hiding their racial roots. Like you have people like Margaret Sanger, who wanted to exterminate black people because she felt that we were a feeble class and that we didn't know anything that we were doing. And they often rewrite the narrative to say that, oh, feminism is for all women. But then again, when American women started using 4B, which women in South Korea are using because their men are actually putting them through something, they co-opted 4B. But then I saw a video of this South Korean woman who was telling American women, white women in specific, to not use it because they often use other people's minority women's issues in order to kind of promote themselves and give credence and validity to their struggle so that they can get even better benefits in the country that they currently live in, and then leave the rest of the women of the world to the wayside. Because they don't really advocate as hard for women in like, South Korea or in Sudan or in some Western European countries or something. Like they don't, or like Russia or something. They don't advocate as hard for women like that, or women in the Philippines. Like they don't really stand, or women in Thailand. They don't really stand up for women around the world. It's kind of like they just use them in order to validate their struggle and to get as many benefits as they can for their own group. So that was something that that lady had brought up. And then lastly, with the LGBTQ plus community, is that they rewrite history to make it seem as if no one ever in history ever committed any type of wrongdoing that was also LGBTQ. But when we look at history, we see Jeffrey Dahmer was that. He was that and racist on top of that. I believe that there was a man who was some sort of political figure, I think maybe in Florida, who was like drugging black boys or black men, and like having his way with them before they ended up unalived. And I believe that there was a French woman in Louisiana who was conducting exchanges on the black people. Was it like the late 1800s or something, or early 1800s? And she was so crazy that they ran her up out of the South for being so crazy. But She was trying to conduct sex. She was trying to conduct exchanges on people, which no one really talks about. And then not only that, but more recently, we kind of have attacks in the restrooms, where women and girls are kind of being exposed to men coming, or men or women who identify, or men who are identify as women going into public restrooms, and kind of instances of things are happening. And it kind of I often hear parents talking about how they kind of push this off on their children, and how they don't like it being pushed off on their children. So this is something that not only affects black people, but it also affects other groups of people as well. And then we come down to government sanctioned and public approved injustice, which I brought up immigration, the mass immigration, immigration crisis, or even invasion, if you want to use that term, where it's like so many immigrants are coming over to America, and some of them have been like terrorist groups. Some of them are part of terrorist groups. A lot of, I've seen a couple of stories about some of the Latin ones being in gangs, and trying to link up with the gangs in America in order to kind of boost their numbers and, kind of have their little cells and stuff in this country. And it's kind of like, people are all like kind of scrambling, like, why would America allow all these people to come in, and we don't vet them properly? We don't know who they are, but why is America letting all of these people just come in with no checks and balances? But it's because they're trying to replace the black American voters, because we decided that we're not really going to vote blue no matter who. And now they're scared that they're going to end up losing their party. So they want to bring in a bunch of immigrants in order to turn them into voters, so that they can vote for them in order to keep them in office long enough for them to try to figure out something else to do in order to keep hold of the country. But it's like, because we refuse to do something, we refuse to participate and give them what they want, they then resorted to attacking the entire country with this mass invasion in order to get kind of like, in order to replace us and even get back at us, because they often put them in cities where the populations are very dense and black. They don't put them in the politicians' neighborhood now. They're not putting them over there. They're not putting them over there by, the White House. They're not putting them over there by wherever Kamala lives. They're not putting them over there. No, they're putting them wherever wherever the majority of black people are. And you can kind of start to see that as a proverbial middle finger to black Americans, because it's like, since you don't want to vote for us, we're going to give you this problem, and now you have to deal with it. But the thing is that this is also very disrespectful to the immigrants who actually went through the proper process and the proper channels to even get to this country. So you have Latinx, Asian, even white immigrants who all came to this country the proper way. And with you letting all of these immigrants in, and Africans and Caribbeans, you have all of these people who coming in, and they don't have to do anything. They don't have to do anything. It's kind of a slap even in their face, because it's like, you went through the process, you did everything you were supposed to do, but guess what? We're going to let all these other people in, and they didn't do anything. They don't have any due process. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's even not, I think I saw a video once on somebody's channel, I forgot who. He interviewed a person who immigrated over here, and he was like, no, don't let them in, or like send them back. It's like they didn't go through the proper process in order to get here like we did. And it's like, that's disrespectful to them as well. But the thing is that they don't care about what they do. They've committed a bunch of crimes. They brought up the whole squatting thing, where they're going and taking people's houses and whatnot. And it's like, there's so much that's going on in this country that they allow to happen. All of this inhumane all these inhumane things. But the thing is that when we look at other government sanctioned and publicly approved injustices, when we look at, let's say, separate but equal, when we look at racial mobs storming Black Wall Street, or Rosewood, or was it Attsworth or something in California? Allensworth or so. Oscarville. Government sanction means that, like, they either okayed it or publicly approved, which means nobody did anything to stop it. It's like it's happened to us for a really long time. And the thing is that since it's okay for the government to do it to us, a lot of non-black American people start to believe that since they're not like us and since they're not us, that it won't happen to them. And now we see that a lot of non-black American people are getting things directed towards them as well, which kind of starts to let them know that if something is happening to Black America, it's going to happen to you too. This doesn't just happen because it just happens. And it's like all of America's problems are not going to go away once Black Americans are completely eradicated from the planet. It's not going to fix itself. It's going to fall and collapse on itself, because with Black Americans no longer being at the bottom, who's going to be at the bottom? If we're gone, like completely taken off of the planet, who's going to be at the bottom? Those Black immigrants who came over here and did well for themselves aren't going to want to be at the bottom. They're going to fight for it. Those Latinx people who came over to this country and benefited from Black Americans, they're not going to want to go at the bottom. They're going to fight. The Asian community, they're not going to want to be at the bottom. They're going to want to fight. Even white immigrants who come over to this country, they're going to fight because they don't want to be at the bottom. Italians know what that feels like. Irish people know what that feels like because they've got a taste of it. Not a whole thing, but they got a little taste of it. They don't want to be at the bottom either. And they know that somebody's going to have to be at the bottom once we're gone. So they don't want to get rid of all of us off of the planet. They just want to kind of have a very tolerable number. But not only that, but it's like all of the stuff that they did in order to try to get our numbers low, like, let's say, not so great injections, like the Tuskegee experiments, pushing gender divide so that Black men and women don't procreate, pushing Planned Parenthood in the Black communities and fertility clinics in the white neighborhoods. Even with all of that, the white population is constantly dwindling, and it has been, and it still is, right now, which has a lot of white people, especially in politics, in a tizzy about it. But the thing is that everything that's happening to them that's keeping them from having children, because they have their own gender divide that they have going on that we've been going through since slavery. They have their propaganda kind of pushing, men and women away from each other. And then on top of that, white women are also getting abortions and whatnot. White people are doing the same thing that they try to push on to us. They have disrespect between their elders and their young somewhat, not like ours, but they do have it. And they have other different problems that they push on to us as well, and even fabricated in the Black American community. So they're going through some of the things that we've gone through too. Because I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase, if America is sick, then Black people got the flu. Or if America has a cold, then Black America has the flu. The thing is that even though we have it the worst, it still means that you're sick too. So I guess one thing that can sum all of this up is that, we are rubber and you're a glue. It bounces off of us and sticks to you. So until reparations for Black Americans are given fully, only for Black Americans specifically, until reparations are met, all of these blowbacks from all of these different things in the community is going to affect everybody else too. So it would actually behoove and be to the benefit of other groups of people in this country to fight for reparations to be given to Black Americans specifically, so that we can then boost the jobs, boost the economy in this country, and make America the place that, it should be, a really nice place to live and come and chase your dreams or whatever. It would become possible if Black Americans were made a protected class, were given the funds in order to create our own establishments, even make our own cities and our own, whatever. Once we are given everything to be self-sustaining, we will then be the ones to carry this country forward into the future. And everyone else will be able to benefit from it like they already benefit off of us right now. The only thing is that the way that they're benefiting off of us right now is not going to be very conducive to a future. But if they were to give us reparations, there would be a future for this country. But I cannot foresee a future in this country if all of these blowbacks are going to constantly keep happening, because all of these groups of people are okay with it happening to Black Americans. If you're okay with it happening to us, then you're okay with it happening to you too. And it's always gonna be like that. It's always going to affect them. It's always going to affect everyone else just as much as it affects us. It may not be right now, but one day it will. So I would suggest you do right by Black Americans. Give us the reparations, the protected class, class with law, our own hate crime, stuff like that. Give us our money. It could be in payments too. It doesn't have to all be at once. Give us our own, give us our land, give us our free college, free healthcare, free our tax exemption, stuff like that. And give us our guaranteed government contracts. Give us all of this stuff, and we'll turn America into a utopia almost. But it can only happen when reparations are given to the descendants of slaves in America. Not in the Americas, in the United States of America. The Black Americans, the foundational Black American freedmen. Once reparations are given to us, we will then be able to turn this country into what it needs to be. But until then, we're not going to be able to go anywhere. I think I reiterated that like 5 times. But anyway, I want y'all to leave a comment on the video, on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Let me know your opinions. Like the video if you liked it. If you don't, man, that sucks. But I want you to want you to support the channel, keep us going, and we'll catch y'all on the next one, or I'll catch y'all on the next one. So yeah, make sure y'all have a great day, and twices of them.